Hey everyone, welcome back. It's week 3. My name is Stephanie and welcome to episode 3 of my quarantine diet series. For those of you that are brand new, I have been recording my experience with dieting during our, stay at home, stay safe, stay at home orders or whatever it is. I don't really like to say quarantine because like a legitimate quarantine is like you're not leaving your house. And, let's be honest, I don't really think anybody's doing that anymore at this point. Actually, this week, I'm sure most of you guys are experiencing things starting to reopen in different capacities depending on where you're at. So that's really cool. Definitely interesting, right? After the past couple of months, it's like weird, like you can actually like go places now, kind of, I guess. I don't know. But, I think it's really interesting to be doing this whole process during, all of this. I think for some people it is not the right time, but for others, they're finding the ability to really just focus and get to work during this time. And for me, that's definitely been what it's like for me. I'm so grateful that I had kind of the past couple of months to just really refocus and recenter myself, because my life is crazy hectic, as boring and bland as it can be, because really all I do is work and then come home and do homework and then, and vice versa. It's also really crazy because I have a lot of pretty important things that go on, and I have to make sure that everything is coordinated. Mostly my life just revolves around my studies, and that's cool because like that's my number one priority and all of that. But it's just been really nice to like have the extra time to focus on stuff like this. So yeah, and then obviously working with people during this time has been interesting too, because everyone has had a different experience. And for a lot of people, it's really challenging for them to find, I'm finding trouble finding motivation for, working out, or I'm really having trouble finding motivation to eat well or whatever. And, I've really thought about that. And motivation isn't what you should be seeking in any situation, whether it's during this stuff or really in any scenario in life. Motivation isn't going to be there for you during the darkest, hardest days of the process. It's going to be your discipline that you need to tap into, and that can be really difficult, especially if you don't know how to generate that discipline. And so, I think a lot of people lose their steam because they, at first are like, yeah, I want to do this, I'm ready to lose weight, or, I'm ready to hit that PR, or blah, 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 and then like in the face of adversity or, a challenge or a mistake, we're human beings, we make mistakes, things might not always be perfect, it's like, well, that's it. It like puts the kibosh on things, and then the next thing you know, you're just giving up, you're just letting it go. And I think especially when it comes to making a lifestyle change or it comes to dieting, people lose their motivation and then they just let it go. And it's like, well, if it was that important to you, if it's really that much of a priority to you, I mean, you have to really assess. You really have to ask yourself, is this a priority that I am in the correct mind space to chase after? And for some people, the answer is no. Some people may not be mentally or physically, they may not be in the right space for that, to be able to just dial it in and get after it. But for those people that are, I want you to think about something. If you are at work and you make a mistake at work, I don't know, think about like, I don't know, if you're making a presentation and you are presenting, you're a sales representative or a sales manager, and you're making a presentation for the executive board of a company that you really want to work with or something. I don't know. Apply it to your own job, I suppose. And let's say in the middle of this presentation, your PowerPoint, like you didn't save the right PowerPoint presentation on your, little USB drive, and what do you do in that situation? Do you try to, save it and try to carry on the best that you can? Or do you just give up in the middle of it and tell, everybody that, came out to see you that morning for your presentation that's it, and you just give up and you walk out of the meeting and that's it? What would you do? I would probably guess that you're going to go with option one. You're going to do the best with what you can. And, hopefully the people that are in the room with you understand that we're humans and we're not perfect, and sometimes we make mistakes. It's really not motivation that's going to be getting you through that. I would argue that it's discipline. Discipline is going to encourage you to continue trying to adhere to whatever actionables you have set in place that will, when you accomplish them, or you are compliant to them, will land you further and closer to your end goal. It's not always going to be motivation that gets you. And, that's something that I realized over the past couple of weeks with myself. Week 1 and 2, I hate dieting. I hate it. And, for the past year, I've, hated on myself and spoke negatively to myself that I allowed myself once again to, be in a situation where I feel like I need to, engage in a fat loss process. It's one thing when you want to lose a couple of pounds, or, shred it, like a quick, little thing that might take you a few weeks to do. But to lose 10, 15 pounds, I mean, it might not be a lot for some people, but for me, that's a lot. And I've kicked myself, plenty of times over the past year for being in the situation that I'm in, that I have to do this. And I was not in the mental space for the past year to even consider trying to do this. And this whole situation, the quarantine situation, has really given me that opportunity to figure out, okay, this is a priority of mine. I keep killing myself over this, that I haven't done this because I'm not ready. But now I have to be ready because this is important to me. And I was not motivated, like right out the frickin' gate to start, cutting my calories and giving a shit about tracking. When I'm comfortable with where I'm at, I definitely am not as adamant about tracking my food and weighing my food. I might, instead of, weighing and measuring things, I might use my hands as, estimation. So fun fact, like your palm here is equivalent to a 4-ounce serving of protein. Your thumb is technically a serving of fat. So if you think about this would be a tablespoon of peanut butter. Okay. Your cupped hand is supposed to be like dense carbohydrates, like starches or legumes or fruits. And then your cupped hand would be for for leafy vegetables and things like spinach and whatnot, like lesser calorie dense foods, if you will. So, I will maybe, stuff the scale away and use my hands for measurements, or just take a quick, tablespoon, whatever, I'm much more relaxed and lenient, about, getting my phone out and tracking every little thing. I can generally, I've been doing this long enough where I can generally manage it without it. So for me to have to reintroduce it, I hate it. I do. It's a great tool for accomplishing fat loss or for understanding how we can control the calories in variable. Earlier in the year when I thought I was, or I should say late last year when I thought I was ready to do this, I was having success without actually having to track my food, but I only got so far. And my coach, Peter, told me this too. He's like, there's only, you're only going to get so far with what you're doing, and eventually you're gonna have to get a little bit more strict, and you're gonna have to start tracking your food again. And at first I was like, nah, I don't know about that, but he was right. He's always right. Honestly, he's really always right. I only got so far, and I, got wrapped up in school and the season, and I just went back to not really caring again. So, it wasn't motivation that got me here. And I did not start feeling motivation until last week. Because it went so well. And, it was a slam dunk for me in comparison to week 2 when, if you recall from last episode, I was like, oh my God, I am not changing, this sucks, like I already screwed up, it's week 2, I can't lose the weight. I get in my own mind. It's like, when you diet so vigorously for a show and then you put the weight back on plus some, it's really hard to lose it right after. I mean, it's really hard, even if you try. And, it's without, saving you guys the whole, metabolic rate conversation, because I feel like I talk about it all the time. It's like you get scared that it's not going to come off. And like, it's going to, but you get scared that it's not going to. And that was like week 2 for me. And then week 3 happened, and it's like, I made that adjustment. I really started seeing physical changes. There are things about my body, there are features about my body that I absolutely love. I know I might not be like the most, the strongest person. I may not, my arms and my shoulders will perpetually never, like, they will just never catch up with the rest of my body. My legs are very strong. My posterior chain is very strong. But when it comes to arms and shoulders, those are my weak spots. I know that they will, it's very challenging to get them to be, proportionate to the rest of my body. But there are things about myself that I love. And I think that that's something too that people don't talk about enough. Parts about themselves that they actually love. Maybe that's a conversation for another time. I started seeing my delt vein come back. I'm starting to see my shoulders round. I'm starting to, see that my arms are, I need to be lower body fat for it to actually look like I lift weights up top. And I'm starting to see that stuff come back. My obliques are starting to come back. My waist is getting smaller. Things like that. It's really exciting to see those physical changes, and I finally feel motivated to push forward. I'm really excited to see where the next few weeks take me, and it makes me feel motivated to adhere. So I'm traveling this upcoming week. I'm going to Connecticut, and I'm going to be gone for the whole week. And, I will have access to a fridge and a kitchen, but, I'm also going to be seeing my friends and my family who I haven't seen since the end of February. And, I'm excited to go and see them and hang out with them. And, restaurants are open, I can't wait to go, to Republic and have, drinks and awesome food at my favorite restaurant with my favorite people in the whole world. And I'm nervous that, I may let myself slip up next week. But this motivation, yes, I feel motivated, but I know that it's not going to be motivation that's going to get me through next week. And I also know that it's discipline that got me here. It's discipline to consistently adhering to what, my macro goals are, what my activity goals are every single day for the past couple of weeks. That discipline got me here. That discipline will equate to consistency. And I cannot drive that home any more than I already do. Discipline and consistency will get you to where that you want to be. But you have to be disciplined. You have to make sure that you can't not be compliant to a plan and then at the end of every week be like, well, I didn't see the progress that I thought I was going to see. Why not? And then you start blaming yourself. Well, to an extent, but you have to ask yourself, were you compliant? Did you have discipline during, challenging moments where maybe you were enticed to deviate from your plan. And so, you know, I kind of want to touch on a couple things that you can do from a nutritional standpoint to make sure that you are, you know, being compliant as you possibly can without making as many mistakes as you. So I think sometimes people are not keeping track of their calorie intake as well as they could be. And there's a few kind of pitfalls of macro tracking, and I want to kind of talk to you guys about that because it's important, and they're really easy fixes that you can literally start today. And you might actually, I mean, if you're stuck, if you're in a plateau and you can't, and you're having trouble progressing forward, this might actually be the key to unlock it. So check it out. Number one, if you are tracking macros and you are not weighing or measuring your food, you need to start now. You need to start. First things first. You can't just eyeball something and assume that that's what it is. There is a time and a place for that. But when you have actual control over your food in your own kitchen, you need to be weighing and measuring your food. Okay? That's way to dial things in, number one. Number two, make sure that your whatever macro app that you're using to track your food on, make sure that your entries are correct and that you're logging things incorrectly. So check it out. This happened to me during the first couple of weeks of this. I like a certain brand of bread called Dave's Killer Bread. I usually get the whole grain one or the good seed one. And he makes the regular one, and then he makes a thin sliced one. And I had the regular one. The regular carbohydrate macros for the regular sized slices are 26 grams of carbs per slice. The thin sliced ones are 13. So there's, you know, it's almost half. When I was tracking weeks 1 and 2 without realizing it, I was tracking the macros for the thin sliced ones when I was eating the regular ones. And I realized it last week actually, and I was like, oh my God, I've been tracking this wrong. And it's like, yeah, well, who cares? Well, check it out. So after doing the math, I realized that for weeks 1 and 2, I was eating 500 calories over where I thought I actually was. Not a day, but each week. So it adds up, and that's not even really that bad, but I'm so glad that I caught it early. And it also is a potential reason as to why I, you know, maybe saw such awesome progress in week 3. You know, so that's really important. Make sure that the entries that you're using in MyFitnessPal are correct. And also remember that people enter in the data into the app and people make mistakes. So just keep that in mind. Always double check, make sure that what you're entering in is matching whatever you have on your packaging. Even sometimes when you scan it in, always double check. I've seen it scan in incorrectly, and it really could make a huge difference if you catch it. Number 3, try not to always look at your intake from a daily standpoint. Obviously, every day you should be looking at your overall goals and planning what you can eat to make sure that you're hitting those goals and you're not exceeding them. But you also want to make sure that you're not undershooting yourself either. I've seen, you know, a lot of people, like sometimes clients will check in, and in our new app that we use for check-ins, they can log their food and I can look at their graphs. I can't see exactly what they're eating or their meals, but I can see where they're hitting their macros and fats, carbs, protein, and calories for each week. And I can look at their overall averages on how well they were compliant each week. And so a lot of people will under eat and be like, well, one day I was, I hit my macros exactly, and then the next day I was below, and then, the next time I was way up, and the next time I was way down. Like, be as consistent as you possibly can. You always want to make sure that you are hitting your goals, your daily goals, every single day as closely as you possibly can. I always say try to keep it within 5 to 10%. Try to keep it tight. You're not gonna, hit exact numbers every time. Like I'm not gonna hit 60 grams of fat, 175 grams of carbs, 125 grams of protein exactly every single day. I might be within range. 5 to 10% is the proper, is a good way. It's a good way to just target every single day. But sometimes things are not perfect. And maybe you might miss your carbohydrate goal one day, or maybe you might exceed your fat goal. So let's make an example. Let's say, one day you were 25 grams of carbohydrates over your goal for one day. You can make that up for the rest of the week. So maybe the next day you might stay 25 grams below. Or you can split it in half and maybe you'll do, stay 12 grams under, one day and then 12 grams under the next day. And the same thing goes for if you're under. If you miss your goal by 25 grams of carbs, you can make that up later on in the week. So look at your averages week over week. Just like how we look at our weight, look at your macro averages week over week, because it might give you a little bit of a bigger picture as to how compliant you really are. And then you can kind of look back at your data and be like, oh, like I see what happened on this day. Now fail forward. That's the other thing too. It's okay. We will not be perfect. Things will not be perfect. There's no such thing as perfection. I mean, maybe in some situations, but like in this situation, it's like, okay, you messed up, like whatever, figure out what you did wrong or what you can do to improve and try to do it better next time. That's all we can really do. Don't give up because you made a mistake. Keep going. Crazy? So those are a couple of tips that you can use. Literally, I'm telling you, like when you have a second, look at your stuff and make sure that you are being as meticulous as you possibly can be, especially if you feel like you should be seeing progress and you're not. We need to try and control the variables that are involved in fat loss as best as we possibly can. And these tips will probably help you dial things in a little bit better if you aren't already aware of them or practicing them actively already. So yeah, guys, I think that wraps it up for this week. I'm super stoked for week 4. We'll find out how I do. And yeah, I guess I'll talk to you guys next week in a different state. I'm nervous. I have a plan though. I'll talk to you guys about that next week though. My weeks are getting mixed up. Oh my God, my whole concept of time is just really... Oh, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next week. Take care.